Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining for today's sizing exercise. Our place of jump off today is going to be my.nutanix.com. I'm showing that up in the top left-hand corner there. Once you authenticate in, we're going to be focusing on the Nutanix sizer today. Please also note that we do have a Nutanix collector tool that can pull some very interesting stats as far as utilization around some of those host or source environments. Today, we will be leveraging RV tools for this exercise. I'm going to move over. I've already got a sizer session up. Once we get into sizer, we're going to be presented with just a couple of fields here. Let me start here for everyone. You'll notice I've got a notion of my scenarios or shared scenarios. So we do have the ability after modeling to email or share that scenario out. Folks can do things like clone that scenario and then make modifications themselves. Whether you are under my scenarios or shared scenarios, our first step is creating a new scenario. Once you've selected that, you'll be presented with some new fields here. My scenario name is the company name, followed by, in this exercise, the region, the data center, and what we're migrating to, being NC2 as a target. I've also used V to notate version as well as the date I did this exercise. I don't have an opportunity under cluster environment. We're going to be creating a new cluster environment today. Worth noting, we do have the ability, if a customer has an existing NC2 on AWS environment, to model that existing environment, including all those application VMs, and provide a very detailed and thorough sort of scale out look as far as expansion goes. Next under core here, we've defaulted to our Portfolio 2.0 license, which is in scope for today. I'm going to go ahead and select the country being United States. This is for taxing purposes and countries that are currently blacklisted. Go ahead and select United States here. And as I come down, I'm now presented with some scenario objectives. These are not mandatory fields, but they are very helpful. For the first one, an executive summary, I've simply captured that this is a 217% renewal cost. That increase is going to be in effect by 1/1/2024, and the customer is looking to exit Broadcom. The requirements, I have an RV tools input I received on the 17th. We validated it on the 19th with a project owner bill. And the assumptions that I arrived, that data is going to be on a static document typically. As we move down, we've got a constraints field in our head. That 1/1/2024 cutover date does have some constraints against this. Again, while I've got a full doc of the data on those assumptions in very broad strokes, this is a activity on one-to-one rehosting. We've already gathered enough information that we're also using the I4I metal as the particular instance. Any type of application right sizing is sort of out of scope for this phase one of the migration. And lastly, our risk again is, that 1/1/2024 cutover. We could probably put some more information and, maybe it's, lack of participation by ABC Co in our migration workshop. Just something to note, any type of perceived risk on a date slipping. And then lastly, as a description on the source environment, I've just noted where that RV tools is. It's naming convention, if you will. I'm in a good position. Once you are too, go ahead and hit create. Once we hit create, we're now presented sort of with this default view into sizer. We have kind of two main courses. One is to create a workload. The other is to import a workload. For today's exercise, we're going to be importing those particular workloads. Before I jump into here, a couple things kind of worth noting. First and foremost, if we're doing an import of an RV Tools, we do need an unmodified version of that RV Tools pull. So if a customer has gone in post pull and masked out data, maybe removed some certain columns or rows, or even removed one of those tabs, likely you're going to be hit with an error button, and that's likely going to be the reason there. Also, in Sizer, there is a ton of automation that's built into the platform. Lots of questions around Sizer, what Sizer uses as recommendations, assumptions. To understand all those weights in that logic, we can always go to Nutanix Sizer Help. The Nutanix Sizer Help has a nice left-hand navigation. You can see Sizer tool information going back in major releases, business capabilities, miscellaneous functions, even our roadmap and product videos. So very comprehensive. Would typically, recommend taking a look through all of this before reaching out if you do have specific questions around a scenario or around Sizer in general. Back to our Sizer workload here. Again, we're going to be doing an import. Before I import that RV Tools, again, we kind of default to our collector. Nutanix collector is sort of a powerful alternative to an RV Tools. We can pull against source ESXi VMC environments, get a very rich set of not only host counts, etc., but the actual utilization of the applications, etc. I'm going to go ahead and traverse over to RV Tools. Before, again, we do that upload, we've got a couple of options that will help shape and sort of impact the end result here. Again, I'll refer back to, I've already done a session with this project owner. We vetted through those assumptions, and sort of as a takeaway, this is a one-to-one rehosting exercise. We're going to definitely want to have or capture or scope both those powered on and off VMs. Because it's a one-to-one, we're going to go with the provision capacity, not consumed. And worth noting down here that I can either import these workloads by VMs. If I have less than 500 VMs, I can get a running list VM by VM of those resource allocation, or I can import these by a profile. And what that's going to do, if I hit the question mark, we're going to categorize these VMs into a predefined profile, and we're going to group them together. And those profiles really equate to t-shirt sizes of extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, XXL, so on and so forth. Once I'm comfortable, I hit upload file. I'll grab my RV Tools source. I've already got that name. Let me go ahead and grab that. And it's pretty immediate. So it should automatically redirect us to our workload page, which is where we're at now. As you guys can see here, I've got this sense of extra, XXL, small, medium, XL, so on and so forth. These individual VMs that you guys see here, sort of think of these as, they're kind of non-standard deviations. They don't really set in a predefined. So what we have here really is a mix of, particular VM application names, as well as, those grouped entities, if you will. Before I kind of flip over to the solution tab, which is next to that workloads tab, again, we've got a lot of automation built into here. If we know that all of these, applications, and I'm making broad stroke statements right now, have a 5%, change rate, all of them, we could come in here and start modeling some of that net effect to show a customer what this cluster size or this workload might look like in the future here. The easiest way to do that is go up to cluster workload name, and now I can either do bulk change requests, like to edit all of these profiles at once to reflect that 5% change rate. I can disable, delete, or move. If I get out of bulk and get down to an individual category or groupings I now have some additional functionality, which is I can clone that workload as an example. We can also view these and move these workloads around. So very powerful stuff. We'll unselect this. Everything's sort of inclusive for our exercise. I'm going to hit the solution tab. And the first thing to note here is that it's going to default to Nutanix NX, which is our hardware platform of choice on-prem. So my first modification so far, we really haven't done or touched anything. We've put very minimal inputs to get to this time and place. We're going to go and see where that cluster 1 is. We're going to go adjacently to the right under modify next to that gear wheel. And now we're presented with a bit of additional information here. So I can apply these settings, any settings I do here, I can apply these to the workload, to all clusters in a scenario, or even selected clusters. Also worth noting, up in the top left hand, we always default to our automation for scale, but we always give an effort for any operator to come in here and manually go in and fine tune and make adjustments. I'm going to keep these on the default settings, and the first thing I'm going to do is select out of Nutanix and go ahead and select NC2 on AWS. As I start moving down, you'll notice a hardware template. This is very useful if we know that ABC company is already using a standard of an I4I, which is our exercise today. So I could create a hardware template and use that as a simple automated import to further reduce that time to gleaning what the MRR is. Because the I4I is in scope, I'm going to unselect all of these models. I'm going to go ahead and select the I4I. And as we move down, we have a few more toggles to sort of talk through. Minimum CPU frequency, I think, really goes back to performant EUC specific workloads. Obviously, if we go outside of NC2 AWS and look at more of Nutanix as a platform company with all of our CPU options, having this included absolutely makes sense, and certainly applies to the AWS offering, although I think we can quickly glean potential node candidates in and out without selecting this. The CVM per node is really the resources, the vCPU and the memory and the disk that's allocated. This is our operational brains that's down on every node type. So depending really on how much of the stack the customer is running, sometimes these can be edited to sort of reflect that. We can also apply a weighted factor. That really has to do with really that cost versus performance exercise. So I'm going to keep all of these things default here. As we move down under cluster settings, I can now get a sense of, do I want everything to live in one host family, or do I want to lean on a heterogeneous cluster as an example, where I've got the ability to mix different node types to make out that base cluster. On failover, we typically default to a standard N+1, giving that resiliency factor back to the client. After everything has been modified or looks good on your set of eyes, we'll go ahead and hit apply. Once that apply has been made to the workload, we are now given pretty quickly a snapshot of what the recommendation is. What I like about the present view of the Nutanix Sizer tool is not only do I get a host count right here, I've got the I4I with EBS, and I've got a node count of 28 nodes. And what's interesting with Nutanix AOS 6.8 is we have announced support for EBS attach. I can now directly attach any GP3 EBS volume directly to these I4I metal hosts. If I go over to the little information bar, I get a quick snapshot of how much EBS consumption is going on. Now, I may have to do a bit of manual calculations at this point, but basically we're dealing with 16 times 7.5 terabytes equaling to one node times 28 nodes would give us what that total terabytes is for the EBS consumption there. So hopefully this was a good and quick and easy exercise. and determining what that hardware host count is, and if there's any EBS attached to get you to that MRR and ARR. Thanks for listening. Again, I'll plug in Sizer Help if you need any help around understanding the logic that Nutanix Sizer is providing. I definitely encourage you guys to get sort of familiar with the Sizer Help. And as a failback, please always give us a shout if you need an additional set of eyes. Thank you.